In the NBA, there are two main opportunities for coaches to call out a play for their team: when the opponent is shooting a free throw and play is stopped, or after a timeout is called. These special situations can also be from a challenge, review, or extended stoppage in play, where coaches and players can discuss in the huddle in depth any specifics of each play. Coaches and teams know each other's play calls, signals, and tendencies so well that after timeout plays are harder to stop since other teams do not know which play is coming or hit them with a nasty counter for easy scoring opportunities. The Portland Trail Blazers have made drastic strides in the defensive end this season, especially defending after timeouts, going from 25th in the NBA in 2021-22 to currently ranking second in the NBA in after timeout defense. How are they doing this? By mixing up their defensive coverages to always allow and keep the offense guessing with a great zone defensive scheme. The Portland Trail Blazers 2-3 zone is similar to how the Heat run their incredible zone defense. The two players up top typically have length, using Jeremy Grant especially up top to create deflections, longer passes. Their job is to corral and contain any drives and pick up the ball. When one player picks up the ball, the other player drops back almost into the high post just off the elbow to take any off-ball flashing away and find the closest man. They essentially work in a tandem to take away threats at the top of the key. The two players in the wings are responsible for the ball side corner and then weak side block when the ball is opposite them. And this brings us to the big in the middle of the zone, who is essentially the quarterback of the defense, pointing out off-ball movement, cleansing and tagging any cutters to be able to stay in the lane longer. Keeping him in the middle of the floor is key for rim protection and rebounding. Playing a 2-3 zone, the Trailblazers are stifling their opponent's best plays, even taking them away most of the time. In the huddle, most NBA coaches are used to facing man defense, which makes sense because the NBA teams play man defense around 90% of the time. The Trailblazers mix this up by having two different calls. Their zone call is fist, where they hold a fist up. Their man call is five fingers up. You can see the coaches and the players all signaling for this at different times, showing what look they're in, so that way if it is after a make or after a miss, they can generally call one or the other really quickly. Now the other team's huddle, they have to discuss possibly two plays, a man play and a zone play, and even if they did a lot of prep work and scouting and saw that plays that worked previously might not work against the Trailblazers because they could switch between man or a zone. Ball screen defense last year was terrible for the Trailblazers. They elected to hedge or have Nurkic show on ball screens. You can see in the left an example of him hedging, and the right is what they're doing this year at the level of the ball screen. So Nurkic usually has a hand on the ball screener and then sags and drops back as the ball is being driven. In zone, they elect to ice the ball screen or force the ball to one side of the floor. You can hear Nurkic calling out ice here.
But I'm going for catch and shoot Simons.
84-82. Blazers will see the Lakers.
This ice ball screen defense essentially keeps the ball out of the middle of the zone, one of the weakest points where teams are going to try to attack, especially in empty ball screen situations where they try to screen the top of the zone and then have an overload on the opposite side. So it'll be a ball screen on the inside of the top of the one player in the zone, and then three players spaced out on the opposite side, trying to create a quick 3-on-2 advantage for the offense. Icing this stops that and keeps it on one side of the floor. This is where the Trailblazers defense is so much fun and extremely effective. By going to a 2-2-1 press defense in after timeout and after free throw situations, and then falling back into a 2-3 zone. Now, unlike a 2-2-1 pressing or trapping defense, this is exclusively designed to slow down the offense. Now, of course, mistakes are going to happen even against basic press defenses that lead to easy turnovers, but by going to a soft press, their opponents have to take more time off the shot clock, usually leading them to not even getting into their player setup until 12 to 14 seconds left. By slowing teams down with the 2-2-1 press back into the 2-3 zone, the Trailblazers not only take away their best plays, but they force tougher shots later in the shot clock that tend to lead to more misses. Now, of course, teams are preparing and scheming for them to go zone and will continue to do so the rest of the season, but even when teams run zone actions against them, the Trailblazers can force tougher shots in their man to be able to hide any mismatches that the offense might attempt to create, especially in lineups including Dame and Simons on the floor at the same time. Thank you so much for watching this breakdown. If you enjoyed this, I did a much bigger and more in-depth breakdown of the Trailblazers' X's and O's and other defensive schemes for my Coach's Cut supporters. Check that out in the description below.